Flee from the sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexual immoral sins against his own body. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. We all know instinctively that sex has a particular purpose and design. Even if we don't know exactly what that design is, we can recognize when something about a particular sex act doesn't seem right. If we can recognize that something like rape is a misuse of our sexuality, then there must be a proper use. We won't go into the philosophy of what makes an act like rape or incest wrong. We will only discuss the damages it causes and why it can lead a person to atheism. Over the years, I've discussed Christianity with atheists and agnostics of different types. One thing that I have found common among them is an inability to relate to the popular methods of Christian evangelization. The greatest example is that most of the atheists I've spoken to come from a broken family and don't understand the Christian message that God is our Father as something that is appealing. That's because the word Father often triggers feelings of anger, hatred, or bitterness. Most atheists grew up without a father because their fathers have usually left their mothers when he found out she was pregnant, or became unfaithful later in the marriage and decided to leave his wife and children for another woman. Telling a person with this kind of experience that God is your father can sound to them more like you're saying God is that guy who is going to leave you and your mother with a hole in your hearts. If I had that sort of experience, I too might respond with, no thanks, keep your religion. You know? If a person doesn't know what it's like to have a father because he has been absent, unloving, or abusive, then that person is likely to project their idea of father unto God, who is the Father of all. Most people who don't know their fathers, or if he was never really around or uninvolved in their lives, would wonder things like, where is he? Why is he never around? Why is it that I never get to see him or talk to him? Or does he even care about me at all? When God is presented to them as a loving father, the perfect father, they might then wonder, where is he? Why does he never seem to be around when things get bad? When they need him the most? Why can't they see him or hear him? I remember once I was explaining this theory to an atheist, and after I finished, the first thing she said was, you just described me. She was able to relate to what I was saying because she knew the pain of not having a father around. So for a person in the position I've been describing, it's reasonable that they would be asking these questions about God. I believe these are important questions, not only to ask, but to also seek the answers to. They are honest questions that come from the heart. God understands this, and he wants us to ask and seek answers to those questions that pain us. I realize that not all, but the majority of people who come from a broken family become atheists. My point is that it can cause a crisis of faith that fractures the image we have of God, which can then lead down that path. Our sexuality is meant to image the nature of God, who is family. So when we image that love of God properly with our sexuality, we become something of a portrait and a painting of God to the world. Sex in its purest form speaks a truth to the world. God exists. He is real, and he is love. This is evident in a family that sacrifices out of love for each other. The man lays down his life for his bride, and the two then lay down their lives for their children. When we see a family who truly and unselfishly love one another, something resonates in our hearts. Something tells us that this is what life is all about. This is what real love is. This sort of love gives us hope, and we love to see this sort of love in action. On the other hand, sex in its form of perversion or lust speaks a lie to the world. There is no God. God is not love. He is a slave master and a dictator. This is evident when we see a man who controls his wife and children through fear and abuse, when a person is raped and murdered for the sake of climax, and when innocent children are sexually abused, manipulated, and exploited. This sort of lust clashes with us at our deepest levels. This sort of lust goes against everything we know to be true, good, and beautiful. These sexual perversions can cause us to lose faith and hope, not only in humanity, but for many in God. Some say that such a loving God could not exist, thus atheism. It seems to be that the popularity of atheism has risen very quickly since the advent of the sexual revolution. The sexual revolution's message was to have sex with whoever you want, whenever you want, for whatever reason you want, and forget the rules of sex defined by God and presented by the ancient old church, and just define sex for yourselves. This result have brought a near 53% divorce rate, hundreds of new STDs with millions of new infections each year, and a high number of broken family and fatherless homes. The corruption of the family fractures the portrait or image of God that we are meant to image with our bodies. Therefore, the divorce rate has been over 50% for nearly 20 years, meaning that more than half of the U.S. population for the last 20 years have been witnessing a fractured image of marriage and therefore a fractured image of God. If sex in its proper form is meant to reveal us to the nature of God, then God is being hidden from more than half of U.S. families. It's no wonder that the number of atheists have grown so quickly over the past few decades, and it's continuing to grow. This video is meant only to establish that it is reasonable to believe that sexual perversion can lead to atheism. And if a sexual perversion can lead to atheism, then authentic sexuality can lead one back to God. The good news is that if it is true that a broken family can portray a fractured image of God, which can then lead to atheism, then meditating on the true image of sexual love can help reveal God to us. In other words, for those who struggle with belief in God, just know that meditating on the church's teaching on sexuality is the best remedy. But sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not even be named among you, as is proper among saints. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 3. I'm Reverend Said. Please join me for daily prayer, Bible study, and spiritual inspiration. And if you ain't did it already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like, share, and comment on any video on this channel. And until the next time, y'all stay blessed.